From the Beatles inspiring Charles Manson's infamous crimes to U2 inspiring a man to stalk an actress, there are many songs that have allegedly inspired crimes. It happens more often than you'd think. So today we're going to be looking at several instances of crimes that were inspired by music. First, I'm going to make a few stipulations. That's the big word of the day that just means conditions. Sometimes the culprit will outright say that a certain song inspired their actions, and other times it's just speculation. So not every single crime on this list may actually be inspired by the music, but everything on this list was either stated by the criminal or was the consensus in court. You also might be wondering how this is even possible, how a song could seemingly influence someone to commit a crime. But there are actually a handful of studies on how music can affect your attitude and your behavior. One study in particular that is very relevant to this video demonstrates how violent songs can lead to more aggressive thoughts, which isn't too hard to believe. So without further ado, let's begin our list. So Charles Manson is one of the most famous examples on this list because he claims to have been inspired by the Beatles' White Album when carrying out his famous murders. Charles Manson had a very tough childhood, which eventually led to the infamous crimes he would incite. When he was 9 years old, he set his school on fire and continued committing crimes since then. He robbed and stole frequently and was in and out of all different sorts of detention centers. But interestingly enough, Manson was only imprisoned 2 times, which is amazing because of all the crimes he ended up committing. However, after his second imprisonment in the late 60s, Charles Manson began creating his cult known as the Manson family. People seemed to flock towards his strange philosophy. It's said that he would use LSD and other things to reprogram the minds of people who joined him. He had around 20 followers by the end of 1968. It was around then when Manson began preaching to his followers about some sort of imminent apocalypse that would start because of a race war. This apocalyptic mindset was seemingly influenced by the Beatles song Helter Skelter, a song from the Beatles' White Album, but I'll touch on that more later. So after Manson radicalized the rest of his followers, some of them committed infamous murders in August of 1969. First, they attacked and killed the popular actress Sharon Tate and 4 others in her home. The following day, they killed the LaBiancas. And while it's believed that Charles Manson never actually physically killed anyone, at least in this case, most people think that these killings were influenced by his teachings. The 3 Manson family members that had physically committed the murders said that they were not ordered by Manson. However, the court decided that he too was guilty because of his apocalyptic beliefs he had been preaching to the family members. Obviously, I'm glossing over a ton of details for the sake of this video, but I'm sure you get the gist of it. But what do the Beatles have to do with this infamous case, and how did they influence Manson? Well, during his trial, Manson said, "It's the Beatles and the music they're putting out. These kids listen to this music and pick up the message. It's subliminal. It is not my music. I hear what it relates. It says rise. It says kill. Why blame it on me? I didn't write the music."
Music gives everyone messages. That's what music does. I mean, how do I have to appear like I'm some kind of maniac because I can hear something that the music says?
Manson family members also said that Manson would most often quote the Beatles and the Bible, since the Book of Revelation was also a big influence in his beliefs. More specifically, Manson thought that the songs Helter Skelter, Blackbird, and Piggies related to this apocalyptic race war that he believed in. Piggies was a reference to filthy capitalists that Manson hated, Blackbird was a reference to his more racial beliefs, and Helter Skelter was what he called the apocalyptic event that he wanted to initiate. There's even a list online that shows different ways in which Manson likely interpreted the lyrics from the White Album. In fact, at the scenes of the Tate and LaBianca murders, the words "death to pigs," "rise," and "helter skelter" were written in blood. Some of the victims were also stabbed with forks, which some people believe is a reference to the lyrics in the song Piggies that say, "clutching forks and knives to eat their bacon." However, in following interviews, it seemed like Manson was walking back these statements and made it seem like the DA and prosecutors were trying to force a narrative, rather than him actually being inspired by the Beatles. Regardless, the song Helter Skelter was actually just named after an old amusement park ride, not an imminent apocalyptic race war. The Beatles commented on Manson's actions on multiple occasions. Paul McCartney refused to play the song Helter Skelter for years after the incident. Ringo Starr said, "I mean, I knew Tate's husband and Sharon Tate, and it was a rough time." John Lennon said, "It has nothing to do with me. Manson was just an extreme version of the people who came up with the Paul is dead thing." And George Harrison said, "It was upsetting to be associated with something so sleazy as Charles Manson." Manson himself was also a musician, and to be honest, he was not that bad. I actually liked one of his songs. But apparently, he would use his music to preach to his followers. However, since Charles Manson did have a failed music career, some people speculate that's kind of why he had this strange obsession with the Beatles. The song Bodies by Drowning Pool is a fairly popular song with lyrics that are pretty easy to misinterpret. The chorus is, "Let the bodies hit the floor," repeated over and over again, with other lyrics like, "Beaten, why for, can't take much more, nothing wrong with me, something's got to give," with another line that says, "Driven by hate, consumed by fear." It's hard to imagine that the song doesn't regularly play through the minds of psychotic people. I know from previous videos I've made that this song has been a favorite among soldiers in Afghanistan, but it also surprisingly has become one among murderers. The reason I say it's misinterpreted is because the lead singer at the time, Dave Williams, said it was about his perspective when he looks out and sees mosh pits and concerts. But I don't know if I believe that. I mean, maybe I'm tripping, but it seems like it's about something else. Regardless, that is certainly not how Joshua Cooke interpreted the song. Joshua Cooke had your stereotypical weird kid habits. He had a nice life, a rich family, was bullied, loved shooter games, and liked to dress up as Neo from The Matrix. It's said that he watched the movie over and over again and liked the attention he received when wearing his Neo outfit in public. He even bought a very similar shotgun to the one that Neo had. He had poor grades, didn't make the cut to join the Marines, had no friends, no girls, nothing. With all of his failures and frustrations, it is no surprise that his favorite song was Bodies by Drowning Pool. Joshua said, "I had been listening to the song for about a year non-stop, and I just knew that I had so much hate and rage inside of me that I knew it was leading to a murder." So one night in February of 2003, he grabbed his shotgun and put his headphones on and began playing Bodies by Drowning Pool.
Before I did, I put a CD player on my head, headphones on my head. And this one was a little different than The Matrix. This one was by a band called Drowning Pool. The words to the song were, "Beaten, why for, can't take much more, something's got to give, let the bodies hit the floor."
He then went downstairs and shot and killed both of his parents. Afterwards, he called the police and said, "I just shot my parents. I just blew them away with a shotgun. Get your asses over here." Later in interviews and interrogations, he said that he thinks his actions were a culmination of things over time, including his choice of music. I think it's pretty obvious that this song was a partial influence in his decision. However, it's even more obvious that The Matrix was his main influence. When he was interrogated, he was able to calmly talk about everything with no emotion. However, the first time he perked up was when The Matrix was brought up. He literally thought that he was inside of The Matrix, and he even picked up a phone and recited Neo's speech word for word before committing his atrocity. As far as I'm aware, Drowning Pool has never commented on this situation in particular. However, they did address a similar situation when the media was hung up on the fact that mass shooter Jared Lee Loughner had Bodies as one of his favorite songs on YouTube. The Washington Post wrote an article that pointed out this song's involvement in two separate cases, so Drowning Pool responded. Among other things, they said, "We find it inappropriate to imply that our song or rock music in general is to blame for this tragic event. It is premature to make this assumption without having all of the facts in this case." On August 16th of 2013, 15-year-old James Edwards and his friend Chancey Luna were accused of shooting and killing an Australian baseball player who was out for a jog named Chris Lane. Police also found a dead donkey a block away that had suffered a shotgun blow. Their friend Michael Jones was charged with being the getaway driver. When police were questioning Edwards about the motive of the murder, Edwards said, "We were bored and didn't have anything to do, so we decided to kill somebody." Investigators had no idea why Edwards and his friends would do such a thing until they started looking into his Twitter. After looking into Edwards' Twitter, it was clear that he was a huge fan of Chief Keef. He would tweet about Chief Keef or quote Chief Keef lyrics every other day, tweeting things like, "With my friends when it's time to start taking lives." He also tweeted other lyrics like, "Born a savage, bitch, I'll murk you," and "Bitch, I'm O-block for life, I'll take your life. No talk, no fight. I'm sosa, bitch, I'm gonna sight," with a gun emoji. It was clear that he had a big love for Chief Keef and Chicago, despite being from a small town in Oklahoma. The mother of Edwards' friend Chancey said that her son and his friends behaved as if they were in a wannabe gang. Edwards had also posted a bunch of pictures of himself flexing guns. He was a fan of other artists too, like Gucci Mane and Lil Durk, but the reason people specifically point towards Chief Keef is because of how often he quoted him on Twitter. And the day before the murder, Edwards tweeted at Chief Keef saying, "Up early trying to get that almighty Sosa. We do this shit early down south." The next day, him and his friends would go out and kill someone for fun. After being arrested, police said that he was laughing and dancing as if it was all fun and games. They even said that he claimed it was no big deal. Investigators believe that Chief Keef and his music were what influenced these kids to commit these crimes, and they also blamed spikes in homicides on drill music and their links to gangs. Some articles even referred to Chief Keef as an ultra-violent rapper, and they pointed out his own history of crime. Other people have also speculated that it was some sort of initiation to join a gang, based on the fact that Edwards had been seen wearing a blue bandana and throwing up gang signs. Regardless, it does seem entirely possible that a 15-year-old kid and his friends were influenced to do this by some music, especially since it was such a small town with so little crime. Anyways, the case never got a ton of attention, so there hasn't been any sort of statement from Chief Keef himself. Robert John Bardo was a man who grew up with a rough childhood. He was abused by one of his older siblings and was eventually placed in foster care after threatening to take his own life. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, as his family did have a history of mental health issues. He dropped out of high school in 9th grade and began a promising career as a janitor at Jack in the Box. Robert had also been arrested 3 times for domestic violence and disorderly conduct, so it's safe to say that his life was pretty rough, and he exhibited every sign of someone who's about to do something crazy, which he eventually did. Robert began stalking a child peace activist named Samantha Smith. However, she passed away in a plane crash in 1985, so he developed a new obsession. He then began obsessing over an actress and model by the name of Rebecca Schaefer. He wrote her a bunch of letters and tried to get on the set of the TV show she starred in called My Sister Sam. But after being denied, he hired a private investigator to track down her home address, which he was able to obtain. Anyways, after getting her address, on July 18th of 1989, Robert went to her house in a rage that she had appeared in a sex scene in the movie Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills. He felt as if she had cheated on him, saying she had lost her innocence and was just another Hollywood whore. But he also mentioned that he was a big fan, likely trying to make some sort of advance on her, but she turned him down, so he left. Robert then went to go get breakfast and returned to Rebecca Schaefer's house an hour later. He rang the doorbell, and when she answered, he shot her. He was later arrested, found wandering aimlessly through LA traffic. So, what does U2 have to do with this case? Well, in the trial, Robert said that the song Exit by U2 influenced the murder. The song Exit was inspired by 2 books about murderers called The Executioner's Song and In Cold Blood. The song tells a story of a man who was heartbroken and fell down a deep dark path, with lyrics like, he wanted to believe in the hands of love, his head it felt heavy as he cut across the land, a dog started crying like a broken-hearted man, and a hand in the pocket, finger on the steel, the pistol weighed heavy, and his heart he could feel was beating. It's pretty obvious how a song like this could possibly influence someone with mental health issues. According to iNews, having sat motionless through the whole trial, Robert Bardo sprang to life, grinned, bobbed to the music, and mouthed the lyrics when the song was played in court. The judge watched as the accused rocked in his chair, drummed his hands on his leg, and smiling, mouthed the lyrics, pistol weighing heavy. His legal defense was essentially that he was a mentally disturbed man with schizophrenia, and after hearing the song, he was inspired to kill. Apparently, a psychiatrist testified for the trial, saying that Robert had interpreted parts of the lyrics as references to himself and Schaefer. However, thankfully, the defense did not work, and he was sentenced to life in prison. After this incident, U2 stopped playing the song in '89 until 2017. It wasn't entirely because of the murder, but it did play a part. Bono also said that he didn't feel responsible for the death at all, and that he just assumed it was a good lawyer trying to make a case for their client, as if the song didn't influence Robert at all, which could be possible. Charles Andrew Williams was a 15-year-old kid that was bullied often at school and told some friends that he no longer wanted to live. He was also apparently humiliated by his drama teacher in front of the whole class and clearly had a rough time at school. He had mentioned before to some friends that he wanted to pull a Columbine, but they just brushed it off because they thought he was joking. However, on March 5th of 2001, Charles entered his school with a handgun he had stole from his dad and proceeded to shoot students. 13 people were injured and 2 were killed. He was then quickly detained by the police. This was back when school shootings and mass shootings in general weren't a regular occurrence, so the incident was a nationwide story. One of Charles' friends was interviewed by the Today Show and mentioned that Charles was a big fan of Linkin Park. He claimed that on top of wanting revenge after being bullied, he also was influenced by 3 songs from Linkin Park: One Step Closer, Papercut, and In the End. Another reason that people think Linkin Park influenced his shooting is because of a note that Charles had left his dad that quoted the song In the End. From what I can make of the letter, he quoted lyrics such as, "One thing I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Time is a valuable thing, watch it fly by as the pendulum swings. Watch the clock go to the end of day, The clock ticks life away, it's so unreal. I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end it doesn't even matter. He then ended the letter with, sorry dad, I love you. It also seemed like Charles may have changed some of the lyrics maybe to better fit his situation, but it's kind of hard to make out all of the words. Regardless, it's very unfortunate and very clear to see how much he resonated with this song, feeling like he had no other option. As far as I'm aware, the song wasn't significant in the trial, and those were the main couple of times that Linkin Park was mentioned in this case. Linkin Park then issued a simple statement saying, like everyone else, we are extremely saddened by these events, and our hearts go out to the families and friends of the victims. Later, the guitarist Brad Delson said in an interview that the music was made from a genuine place of darkness, as it was more of a way of letting people know that they aren't alone. Thomas Michael Wilhelm was a man who was running a sprinkler business with his then girlfriend Christine Murray. He had been running Wilhelm's sprinkler company for over 20 years when he asked his girlfriend to step in and partly own the business. After a few years though, they allegedly broke up, but Christine didn't want to give up her share of the company, causing a bunch of animosity between the two. On top of that, according to investigators, it looks like the business was close to failure. For some reason though, the two were together on July 8th of 2012, and Thomas was very drunk and high off of prescription pills. Christine had sent some concerned text to her friend because he was under the influence while loudly singing along to the song Used to Love Her by Guns N' Roses. He was singing the lyrics, I used to love her, but I had to kill her. 11 minutes later, Thomas shot and killed her with a gun that he had just stolen from a neighbor's house. A very similar situation also happened with a man named Justin Barber. Him and his wife were on the beach in Guana River State Park, Florida. He wanted to kill her to collect $2 million worth of insurance money, so he shot her once and himself 4 times. He was found by police and claimed they were attacked in a robbery gone wrong, and her body was found shortly after. However, he wasn't arrested for 2 years because investigators couldn't find a way to prove that he killed her despite suspecting that it was for the life insurance money. But the evidence that finally put him in jail was that they saw he Googled how to survive gunshot wounds the day that he killed her, and he also had downloaded the Guns N' Roses song Used to Love Her. This song was also played in court during his trial. But despite the song being linked to 2 actual murders and influencing both of them, it actually has nothing to do with killing an ex. When talking about the song, guitarist Slash said, people think it's about one of our old girlfriends, but it's actually about Axl's dog. In fact, on the cover of the EP underneath the title of the song, it says, a joke, nothing more. Actually, it's pretty self-explanatory if you ask me. And as far as I'm aware, Guns N' Roses has never officially commented on either of the incidents. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like down below. Other than that though, this has been Matty Balls, and I will see you guys next time.